On a few of the bills being considered, I look forward to addressing our policy concerns and working with the minority on moving these bills forward. In accordance with committee rules, the subcommittee has contacted the Congressional Budget Office seeking informal preliminary cost estimates for each of these bills being considered this afternoon. While many of the bills on our agenda will most likely have a score, we do not have estimates for all of the bills on today's markup. None of the bills today include the offsets that would be necessary to move the bills forward. However, as we discuss what bills will go to the full committee markup and then to the floor, we'll add offsets to ensure that we are in accordance with House rules and that we are protecting the American taxpayer. I look forward to working with Ranking Member Brownlee and the other members of the subcommittee to find offsets for the common sense proposals considered today. Of note, there are still multiple opportunities to improve and make necessary changes to these bills. Ranking Member Brownlee and I will continue working with our colleagues on the committee and any stakeholders that have feedback on these bills as we continue to work through the legislative process to bring the best bills forward. A majority of the bills on today's agenda, including my bills, are focused on ensuring quality mental health and prosthetic care and have bipartisan support. I understand, however, that the minority may have concerns with several of our bills, including Representative Murphy's bill, H.R. 1336, which would establish a pilot program to provide hyperbaric oxygen therapies to veterans suffering from traumatic brain injury or post-traumatic stress disorder. I commend Representative Murphy for his efforts. We should be doing all we can to help our veterans suffering from the wounds sustained during their service and furnishing promising HBOT therapies that take meaningful steps towards that end. I now recognize Ranking Member Brownlee for any opening remarks she may have.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for organizing this afternoon's markup in the interest of promptly proceeding with our markup and the oversight hearing to follow. I will forego an opening statement.
Thank you for that gracious concession, Ranking Member Brownlee. Today we have on block H.R. 217, H.R. 1971, H.R. 1107, H.R. 1644, and H.R. 1860. I now ask unanimous consent to consider the following 5 bills on block: H.R. 217, H.R. 1971, H.R. 1107, H.R. 1644, and H.R. 1860. Hearing no objections, so ordered. The clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 217, to amend Title 38,
The bills were circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. I ask that the reading of the bills be dispensed with and the bills be open to amendment at any point. Without objection, so ordered. Does any member wish to speak on any of the bills included in the en bloc?
I wish to speak.
The chair recognizes Ranking Member Brownlee.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm glad that this en bloc includes 2 bills that are priorities of our Democratic members. This includes Representative Underwood's Copay Fairness for Veterans Act, H.R. 1644, which will eliminate financial barriers that could prevent veterans from accessing basic preventive health care. This legislation will waive copays for certain immunizations, certain services recommended by the United States Preventive Service Task Force, and preventive services for women, including contraceptives approved by the FDA. Under the Affordable Care Act, almost all private health insurance plans are required to provide coverage of preventive services without charging copays. However, while most civilians have been able to access preventive services without copays for nearly 15 years, thanks to the ACA, the same guarantee does not exist for veterans who access care at the VA. Representative Underwood's bill would correct this. I'm also pleased that the en bloc includes H.R. 1860, the Women's Veterans Cancer Care Coordination Bill, a bill I am co-leading with Representative Sylvia Garcia. Through VA's Breast and Gynecology Oncology System of Excellence, VA oncology, surgical, and nursing specialists are already providing world-class care for these types of cancers directly through VA. The System of Excellence also helps connect veterans with care in the community when necessary. However, regardless of where individuals are receiving care, cancer treatment is often very complex, requires patients to regularly see many different providers for various treatments. This can be very difficult for patients to navigate, and our veterans deserve the highest level of support throughout this time. Representative Garcia's bill will help improve the quality of VA's care coordination for breast and gynecologic cancers. The en bloc also includes H.R. 1107, the Protecting Veterans Access to Telemedicine Service Act, sponsored by Representative Womack. While I am supportive of this legislation, which seeks to exempt VA prescribers from a requirement to conduct an in-person medical exam prior to prescribing controlled substances, making permanent a flexibility that has been extended to VA and non-VA prescribers alike since the COVID pandemic. I will note that VA did not provide views on this bill during our March 11th legislative hearing, indicating that it would provide views via letter at a later date. To my knowledge, the committee has not yet received this letter. If this bill is considered at a future full committee markup, we should amend it to address any concerns or technical revisions that VA may request. I hope our majority colleagues will work with us to ensure the committee advances a bill that VA and other stakeholders can support. That said, I'm glad to support the bills included in the en bloc and urge my colleagues to do the same, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Brownlee. Does any other member wish to speak on any of the bills in the en bloc? Seeing none, no amendments were filed to these bills. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Hearing none, I now recognize Ranking Member Brownlee for a motion.
Madam Chairwoman, I move that H.R. 2217, H.R. 1971, H.R. 1107, H.R. 1644, and H.R. 1860 be reported favorably to the full committee.
There is a motion to favorably forward these bills included in the en bloc. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the bills are favorably forwarded to the full committee. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now call up H.R. 1969. The clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 1969, to amend.
The text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is now open for an amendment at any point. I now recognize myself to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. The clerk shall report the amendment in the nature of the substitute.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment in the nature of the substitute be dispensed with. I ask that it be considered base text for the purposes of the markup. Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize myself for 3 minutes to explain the amendment in the nature of the substitute. Fox grants have made a meaningful and measurable impact in the lives of our veterans. It was designed with a simple but powerful idea in mind, that no matter where a veteran turns to for help, they should be able to access mental health services they need without being turned away. And it's working. Across the country, we've seen veterans who were once struggling in silence now connected to care thanks to the dedicated partnerships between the VA and local organizations. However, while I believe there's room for improving certain aspects of the Fox Grant program, we cannot ignore that this program is set to expire in the coming months. This is an outcome I won't accept. My amendment in the nature of a substitute reauthorizes the Fox Grant program 2026 through 2026 to ensure that veterans continue to receive the vital services they rely on today while giving us time and space to deliberately and thoughtfully act on potential reforms for the future administration of the program. I yield back the balance of my time. Do any members wish to be recognized to comment on the amendment in the nature of a substitute? The chair recognizes Dr. Dexter for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, as a committee, we must be focused on ensuring the VA has resources and workforce for a robust direct care system. This proven, trusted system is best suited to care for our veterans, and by many accounts is where veterans want to receive their care. At a base level, I have concerns with the underlying legislation because it runs counter to this goal. I also have significant concerns with the ANS to this bill, which I believe was intended to address concerned stakeholders have with the program, but which does not seem to fix any issues and instead introduces new concerns. Foremost among those concerns for me is the language in the ANS requiring grantees to use the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale, or the CSSRS, to provide baseline mental health screenings to program participants. With any congressionally established program, it is essential we collect and evaluate data so we can understand the relative effectiveness of the things we are investing in. I have serious concerns about the concept of Congress, absent input from the scientific and mental health community, mandating a single screening tool to measure the success of the program. While the Columbia Protocol is a well-established clinical tool and provides crucial information to providers about an individual's risk for suicide in a given moment, it is not designed to measure every suicide risk factor, nor is it capable of showing improvement over time for risk factors. This approach provides no flexibility to ensure that the program has the tools to collect the best possible outcome data. Furthermore, I believe congressional intent in establishing this program also included a clear need to gather evidence on the utility of this program. Based on the preliminary data Congress has received from the first two mandated reports on evaluating it, we are failing miserably short on this important aspect of it. I am also concerned by a provision in the ANS that adds healthcare providers as an eligible grantee. Because the ANS does not define what kind of healthcare providers would be newly eligible, I can only conclude that this change would potentially open up access to a new funding stream for community care providers without the significant guardrails that they are usually subject to. It is not a responsible or effective use of taxpayer dollars to extend a program that we have no way to prove in a data-driven scientific way is actually serving our veterans, especially when it comes at the expense of investing in proven services at the VA. As a committee and as members of Congress, we should be investing in programs and interventions provided through the direct VA care system, rather than creating new programs that divert those investments outside of VA. For these reasons, I cannot support this ANS today, and thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dexter. Any other member wish to speak on the bill? Does any member wish to offer an amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute? Hearing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1969. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is agreed to. Without objection, now a recorded vote has been requested pursuant to committee rules. The vote will be postponed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now recognize Representative Hamadeh for a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that the subcommittee favorably forward H.R. 1969 to the full committee.
We're postponing that. My apologies. We'll now go to H.R. 1823, the VA Budget Accountability Act. Representative Bergman, I now call up H.R. 1823. The clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 1823, to direct the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and the Comptroller General of the United States to report on certain funding shortfalls in the Department of Veterans Affairs.
The text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is now dispensed with, and the bill is now open for amendment at any point. I recognize myself to speak in favor of the bill. I applaud Representative Bergman for his leadership of H.R. 1823. The bill would require the Comptroller General of the United States to conduct a forensic audit of the Department of Veterans Affairs budgeting process to determine the cause of the VA's alleged budget shortfall from last year. We owe it to our taxpayers and to our veterans to get a full picture of the VA's accounting errors to ensure accountability and prevent this from ever happening again. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. Does any other member wish to comment on the bill? The chair now recognizes Representative Bergman for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will keep this brief. Congress has the solemn duty to provide the VA with every single dollar it needs to give veterans the health care and benefits they've earned through their service. The only way this can be done is through accurate budgeting and planning by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Budgeting failures at VA, like those we saw last year, are inexcusable and could directly impede our mission on behalf of veterans. My common sense legislation would require the Comptroller General to perform an internal audit of the accounting mismanagement in the VA, which resulted in their sudden shortfall report. This will help ensure that such a budgeting mistake does not happen again while preventing the mismanagement of taxpayer funds, and I repeat, while mismanaging taxpayer funds. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1823, and I yield back.
Does any other member wish to speak on the bill?
I wish to speak, Madam Chair.
The chair now recognizes Ranking Member Brownlee for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I support the intent of this bill and I will vote in favor of advancing it to the full committee, I would respectfully request that the majority work together with our staff to amend this bill when it is marked up at the full committee level. Both GAO and OIG are already working on reports that will identify the causes of the VHA and VBA shortfalls that came to light last summer. In fact, just days from now, OIG is set to publish 2 reports that were already mandated by the Veterans Benefits Continuity and Accountability Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2024. GAO has separately initiated a review of VHA's budget shortfall under the Comptroller General's authority, and it significantly overlaps the scope of the VHA review that would be mandated by General Bergman's bill. In addition, I agree with the observation that VA made in its testimony for the legislative hearing where this bill was considered 2 weeks ago. H.R. 1823 requires GAO to submit its completed report to VA and then requires VA to submit GAO's report to the congressional committees. I don't think this makes a lot of sense, as VA would not be adding anything to the report. I agree with VA that it would be more logical for a GAO to directly submit the report directly to Congress when completed. While I understand the eagerness to get to the bottom of what happened with VA's budget estimates and monitoring of budget execution last year, I'm concerned that H.R. 1823, as introduced, would represent little more than a duplication of GAO's and OIG's existing reviews. I hope that the majority staff will work with us to determine what aspects of the VBA and VHA budget shortfalls may still need to be examined and amend this bill accordingly so that we can ensure the most efficient use of GAO's resources. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Brownlee. Does any member wish to offer an amendment to H.R. 1823? Hearing none, I now recognize Representative King-Hines for a motion.
Madam Chairwoman, I move that the subcommittee favorably forward H.R. 1823 to the full committee.
There is a motion to favorably forward H.R. 1823. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 1823 is favorably forwarded to the full committee. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now call up H.R. 1336, the Veterans National Traumatic Brain Injury Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 1336.
The text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is now open for amendment at any point. I now recognize Dr. Murphy for 3 minutes in support of his bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. They say that doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And we lose today 17 to 30 veterans every day to suicide. So far, nothing has worked. Last year, when this committee was introduced with psychedelics, I admit I was very skeptical at first. But being objective, reading the literature, and coming to a conclusion that I thought was medically correct, I agreed with this. And we passed this in a bipartisan manner out of this committee. We have witnessed veterans, we've had witnesses, we've had veterans groups come and attest to the salutary and life-saving effect for PTSD and TBI with hyperbaric oxygen. I've worked with Dr. Shah Afradi in Israel, who has the world's largest experience in using the benefits of hyperbaric oxygen for TBI and PTSD. There have been multiple NIH studies, and I've handed them out to each of this committee and to the members of this committee before. Most recently, I believe October was a meta-analysis showing 15 years of experience with close to 40 studies showing the beneficial and life-changing effects of hyperbaric oxygen therapy for TBI. This is when our veterans, sadly enough, given the experience of what's being done at this point in time, hit a wall. There's no reason, in my medical opinion of 30 years of being a surgeon and used this multiple times as a surgeon, that we should not allow our veterans a chance when they literally have no other chances. So today, I'd like to present my bill, along with grateful co-sponsors, bipartisan, Representative Kiggins, Davis, Strickland, Whitman, Van Orden, Maliotakis, Ross, Biggs, McDowell, and Harder to this committee. They are also supported by multiple VSOs, DAV, WWP, American Legion, VVA, Treat Now, Fleet Ready Reserve, military veterans, and AMVETS, to understand how deeply crucial it is that we do something now that is proven. We have had an expert witness, the esteemed Dr. Andrew Komsminski, who came from the University of Iowa, who is a hyperbaric oxygen medicine specialist. This is something that is being done around the country. I know in Durham, North Carolina, we have an excellent institute that through funding, through donations rather, we are treating hundreds and hundreds of veterans each year. I have personally met many of these individuals whom literally had no other hope and has made a difference in their life. I would love that this committee passed this bipartisan. This is good medicine, and I believe it is something that will help our veterans in a time when we have not been helping them up to this point. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I urge my colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, to vote for this bill.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. The chair now recognizes Dr. Morrison for 3 minutes to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My amendment, I do have an amendment at the desk. Madam Chair, my amendment requires the VA to conduct a full literature review on the effectiveness of HBOT as a treatment for PTSD and TBI. At the March 11th legislative hearing, this subcommittee heard directly from VA's testimony that there is currently no scientific basis to support the clinical efficacy of HBOT as a treatment.
Can I ask the gentlelady to pause?
Certainly.
Okay, the clerk hasn't recorded the amendment, so we need to do that. We're currently speaking on the bill, not on amendments, so can you pause? We will come back.
All right, Madam Chair, thank you.
Do you wish to speak on the bill? Yes. Ms. Sherfless-McClung? Okay, then the chair now recognizes Representative Van Orden for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We held a roundtable here, which unfortunately most of my Democrat colleagues couldn't seem to make time to make it there. We had people that are using psilocybin, ayahuasca, we had talk therapy, we had faith-based groups. For Pete's sakes, the guy that shot Osama bin Laden is a friend of mine, and he testified there. Another person that testified, his name was Robert Akoniak. He was my roommate in SEAL training. And we both did 26 years, multiple combat tours. He was a breacher instructor. We were both diagnosed with PTSD and TBI, as have really the majority of my SEAL friends. And so I'm on the psychedelic caucus, and I don't completely agree with it at all. I've been very frank with this. General Bergman chairs that, but it saves at least a veteran's life, one, and that's enough. HBOT, it works. Robert Akoniak is literally alive, and his wife, Shar, actually testified for him, and he sat next to her, and she explained how Robert using HBOT, hyperbaric go-to therapy, gave her her husband back, and who in the hell are we to say that that's not okay? That is not our place. And if it saves one veteran, it's worth it. One. It's the power of one, ma'am. So when we're sitting on our high horse up here, you guys have not walked the walk that I have. You haven't, or my friends, you just have not. I've had 21 of my friends commit suicide. I'm 55 years old. 21. If I could bring any one of those back for 5 minutes, I would do so. I'd give my soul for that. And for us to sit up here and say that we're not going to do this because it's not evidence-based. Robert Akoniak is a live doctor. He is the evidence. We don't need to do any more studies because every time we do a study, nothing happens. And our friends are killing themselves as we speak. I stand in incredibly strong support of this bill. I encourage my Democrat colleagues to go with me and visit my friends if you want. And I will take you to them and you will talk to their wives. And you can talk to the kids that don't have dads anymore because they killed themselves because treatments like this weren't available. And then you put in your amendment. With that, I yield back.
The chair will remind all members to address the chair, not to other members of the committee. Thank you. The chair now recognizes Dr. Morrison for 3 minutes to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an amendment at the desk.
We're not on amendments. We're speaking
All right.
on the bill. The chair now recognizes Dr. Dexter to speak on behalf of the bill, not any amendments.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to recognize the importance of this issue to my colleagues and certainly our patients. I took care of veterans, many with TBIs and PTSD. I very much appreciate the importance of treating effectively and with care and due diligence. And I also think, as a physician, it's my responsibility to speak up when we are advancing policy that has not been proven to serve patients and will remove funding from other interventions that are data-driven and scientifically proven. And to that end, I will highlight here the research on hyperbaric oxygen treatment is flimsy at best. It's certainly not rigorous. It's certainly not compelling. And I will be entering into the record for our previous legislative hearing several studies that substantiate this point. Notably, one of those studies shows that for mild TBI, this treatment is no better than a sham treatment. We also know that placebo has an overall 30% effectiveness rate. And people will feel better when they are having something done to them. This is shown over and over again. The difference is whether or not we compare the intervention with a placebo, and that has not been proven to have efficacy here. I would also suggest that some of the prior evidence proposed or shown in the record had clear and present conflicts of interest with the folks who published the study having gain from that information. And at the end of the day, this is a question of resource allocation. It is all of our responsibilities to make sure veterans get the best quality, highest efficacy care, and we are not fully funding the Veterans Administration sufficiently to have extra funding to try other things. And so I will not stand by quietly as we propose to waste taxpayer money and enrich special interest groups on a treatment that is not evidence-based, when there are so many more pressing things for this patient population that are proven and are effective. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying bill, H.R. 1336? The chair now recognizes Dr. Conaway for 3 minutes.
And I'll try to be brief. And I want to say, first off, that I appreciate very much the life experience, and the emotion behind this bill. We physicians face this challenge very often, where someone comes to the office and they have heard from a loved one, or they've read on the internet, or they've gained some information which would suggest a particular treatment will be helpful to them. And indeed, physicians do, in individual cases, have plenary authority to prescribe, in, I would say, limited circumstances, anything which we think might help a patient who has not been able to find all the help they need to deal with their particular problem. But when it comes to, and particularly when it comes to costly therapies, therapies which may be harmful, or even therapies which may not do any good at all, we have to be particularly careful to always stick to our routines, if you will. They are the method that we apply to these very important decisions. Are there randomized controlled trials that support the recommendation of a particular therapy to a person's diagnosis, to a person's problem? And if that data is not there, then we may very well be doing a disservice to the patient by not directing them to therapies that are proven and shown to work. And I think in many ways we would be, and I'm not making any accusations here, that we may indeed be doing things that are against the oath we take to provide the best advice and to conduct our care with due diligence. So while I appreciate the emotion behind this and the fact that you will have in an uncontrolled, non-experimental setting successes, the broad application of a particular therapy might not be warranted, in many cases are not warranted, by the data that's put before us. And I think that's the point my colleagues are making. And so I'll just end there, Madam Chair, and thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes General Bergman for 3 minutes for any comments he may have on the bill. The chair now recognizes Dr. Murphy for
Thank you, General
the
Bergman.
remaining time.
You know, I'm trying to sit back and realize what's been said. I've handed out 3, here's a meta-analysis, randomized, placebo-controlled trials. There are 40 studies in this thing, 40, that show a salutary benefit. And maybe you weren't listening when I spoke at the beginning. 40 have shown this. We have had experts come across this country that don't just do this for their own benefit. Nobody's, I take a little umbrage at the fact people are publishing this so they can get referrals. That's ridiculous. We're dealing with trying to do things for our veterans. And as for spending more money, we had a secretary of the VA come up here last year and say we're $12 billion short, no, we're $6 billion, that they spent $180 billion more where our VA level was flat. So that's really not an argument. So I would suggest to my colleagues, this is a visceral issue for me because I have seen what it's done, and I guarantee you I'm the only physician in the room that's actually actively used this therapy, that these are true studies. They're apolitical, they're meta-analysis studies that go back and look at all of these things. And I urge you, and I'll be happy to supply further papers to you to show that this is a definitive treatment. It has been put against sham treatment. It has been done everything that it's supposed to do. And yes, we want to continue, if you want to continue what we're doing, then we are resigning ourselves to letting 17 to 30 veterans die a day from suicide. So no, doing the same things as I started out my comments on, saying the same things and doing the same things over and over is a pathway to disaster for our veterans. This is scientific proof. It is not the scientific proof that we saw back during the pandemic when people lied to us. This is scientific truth that I have scrubbed for the last decade. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll yield back.
Thank you, Dr. Bergman. I now recognize myself for 3 minutes to speak in support of H.R. 1336. As we've begun these topics on therapies other than traditional therapy for the treatment of PTSD, mental well-being, and suicide prevention, it brings to mind the abysmal record that the VA has in treating what seems to be a refractory problem. We have heard testimony from family members, from veterans, about their struggles accessing to care, about the side effects from traditional antipsychotic, anti-anxiolytic medications, significant side effects, yet we continue down the same pathway. That's the point of pilot studies, when the evidence may be, to some, equivocal or less robust than they want. The purpose of the pilot study is to show whether or not there is true benefit when you do have randomized studies that may show a benefit. I'd like to thank Representative Murphy, Dr. Murphy, for his continued leadership on the bill, the Veterans National Traumatic Brain Injury Act, for the family members of people who are here in support of trying to end veteran suicide, and for this bill that would require the VA to establish a pilot program granting veterans access to hyperbaric oxygen therapies in their community. None of us want to waste the VA's money, but in the past 4 years under the previous administration, the funding increase to the VA was $126 billion. The number of employees increased to the VA was 80,000, but the number of veterans receiving care, enrolling for care, or applying care, even with the PACT Act, which hasn't changed that number, has been relatively flat. So there has been, in fact, increased funding. PTSD and TBI continue to take a devastating toll on our veterans, of which I am one, meaning veteran, and we should be expanding, not limiting treatment options. It's why I support H.R. 1336, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. I yield back the balance of my time. Do any other members wish to be recognized on the underlying bill, H.R. 1336? Seeing none, does any member wish to offer an amendment to H.R. 1336? The chair now recognizes Dr. Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk shall read the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 1336, offered by Dr. Morrison. Page 2, before line 5, insert the following new subsection.
It's consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize Representative Morrison for 3 minutes to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I think what unites us on this committee is our desire, our passionate desire to ensure that those that put their lives on the line for our country get the care that they have earned, and they deserve to get the best care. So my amendment simply requires VA to conduct a full literature review on the effectiveness of HBOT as a treatment for PTSD and TBI. At the March 11th legislative hearing, the subcommittee heard directly from VA's testimony that there is currently little or no scientific basis to support the clinical efficacy of HBOT as a treatment for PTSD or TBI. As a physician myself and a strong supporter of evidence-based medicine, I have serious concerns about requiring the VA to proceed with this pilot program without full consideration of available research. Increasing access to PTSD and TBI treatments and encouraging the development of new treatments is a goal I know I share with my Republican colleagues on this committee. However, we have a responsibility to be thorough and carefully evaluate that the critical resources directed to veteran treatments deliver their intended outcomes. The last thing any of us want is delayed development of new treatments or decreased resources to existing proven treatments for the sake of those lacking robust scientific basis. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this amendment and recognize the value of completing our due diligence through this review. Passing this amendment safeguards meaningful progress toward our shared goal of making sure that every veteran has access to the quality PTSD and TBI treatments they deserve. And with that, I yield back, Madam Chair.
Does any other member wish to comment on the Morrison Amendment to H.R. 1336? The chair now recognizes Representative Van Orden for 3 minutes.
I would think that one of the primary responsibilities in how we should conduct ourselves in this committee is by listening to veterans. I would assume we all agree, correct? Chairwoman's a veteran, she supports this bill. General Bergman's the most senior ranking member of the military to ever be elected to Congress. He supports this bill. I'm the longest serving enlisted member of the United States military to ever be elected to Congress in the history of our nation, and I support this bill. Jen Kiggins is a veteran, she supports this bill. Mr. Ahmed is a veteran, he supports this bill. Listen to veterans. That's us. I yield back. Oh, sorry. I should say that I do not support this amendment at all, and neither did any of these people that have served with a gun in our hand defending the rest of this committee. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Does any other member wish to comment on the Morrison Amendment to H.R. 1336? The chair now recognizes Dr. Murphy for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to urge my colleagues to vote no, and it's not just merely because what's been said, because it effectively kills the bill. And I've said now probably for a third time, a full meta-analysis study, I'll be happy to walk it over to the VA and hand it to the physicians if they want, but it takes about 10 minutes to go back and do a literature search that has shown over the last 10 to 15 years through multiple studies and meta-analysis studies of a salutary benefit of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. To not do this, in my opinion, is to go against my oath. So I would urge against this only because it strikes the whole bill, another further delay, and if they want the study, the group of studies, I'll walk down there with a stack with them. I urge no vote.
Seeing no other members that wish to speak, the question now occurs on agreeing to the Morrison Amendment. Chair now recognizes Dr. Dexter for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out that this amendment does not kill the bill if it is robust in the data. And so if it is data-supported, scientifically driven, that absolutely would not kill the bill. And I think we should all want to make sure we're doing no harm to our patients. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
The gentlewoman yields. Do any other members wish to speak on the bill? Seeing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the Morrison Amendment to H.R. 1336. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
In the opinion of,
Madam
excuse me,
Chair,
I'm a no.
request a recorded vote.
A recorded vote has been requested pursuant to committee rules. That vote will be postponed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Does any other member wish to offer an amendment to H.R. 36? The chair now recognizes Representative Sherfullis McCormick.
Madam Chairwoman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize Representative Sherfullis McCormick for 3 minutes to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My amendment will require GAO to issue an update to its 2015 report regarding the efficacy of HBOT at the treatment for PTSD and TBI within 1 year of enactment. GAO's 2015 report, which was mandated by the Joint Explanatory Statement accompanying the Consolidated and Further Continuing Appropriations Act of 2015, reviewed the findings of 32 peer-reviewed articles on research about the use of the hyperbaric oxygen therapy to treat PTSD and TBI. The report found mixed reviews in effectiveness of the treatment and that there was no standard design for the studies they reviewed. We can all agree that a lot can change within 10 years, particularly when it comes to PTSD and TBI treatment research. GAO's work will be very helpful in ensuring transparency and ensuring veterans have access to the latest information about efficacy of this treatment. I hope all my colleagues will share my interest in understanding the results of the latest research of this topic in the last 10 years. And with that, before I yield back, I do want to mention that it's particularly important that we actually are documenting, if this bill does move forward, that we have some kind of safeguards that are present so we can see the results of it. And so I don't believe that this amendment will have a negative impact on this bill, and so I urge my colleagues to vote for this amendment so we can fully understand this treatment. Thank you, I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. Does any other member? The chair now recognizes Dr. Murphy for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady for her amendment. I think it's a fair and friendly amendment. We all want to study afterwards to see really how our veterans are treated, so I would urge my colleagues to vote in favor of the amendment.
Any other member wish to speak on the amendment? Okay, the question now occurs on agreeing to the Sherfless-McCormick Amendment to H.R. 1336. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the Sherfless-McCormick is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Does any other member wish to offer an amendment to H.R. 1336?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment to
Chair now
HR.
recognizes Representative Brownlee. You have an amendment at the desk. The clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to HR.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with without objection. So ordered. I now recognize Representative Brownlee for 3 minutes to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like many of you, I was horrified by the recent death of a 5-year-old boy in Michigan when a fire broke out in the hyperbaric chamber where he was receiving treatment for ADHD and sleep apnea. As a result, 3 of the medical facility's employees have since been charged with second-degree murder. According to Michigan's Attorney General, who brought the charges, it has come to light that the facility did not perform daily maintenance checks, failed to perform safety checks, or employ a patient work ground strap, did not have a medical doctor or safety supervisor on the premises, and did not ensure the treatment was performed by a licensed technician. I am not here to dispute the many studies that have found hyperbaric oxygen therapy is safe when performed according to safety standards and by licensed individuals. However, this story should be a wake-up call to everyone of the dangers of failures of oversight. My amendment is very simple and requires HBOT providers that participate in VA programs to be accredited by the Joint Commission, the Undersea Hyperbaric Medical Society, or another relevant accrediting body. We cannot take risks when it comes to ensuring our veterans' safety. This is a common sense amendment to ensure veterans only receive care from a qualified, safe, licensed clinical providers and aren't taken advantage of by unscrupulous providers who have no business providing care to anyone, let alone our veterans. I sincerely hope all my colleagues will join me in supporting this amendment, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Brownlee. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying amendment? The chair now recognizes Dr. Murphy for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will speak for this amendment. Tragedy that occurred, sadly, tragedies occur in medicine when we're trying to heal patients. From what I understand, the child was allowed to have something in the chamber that was not supposed to be there, but I don't know 100% of the facts. The fact that we want safety to occur is the prime directive that we have. We want everything to first do no harm. So I have no issue with this. I think it strengthens the bill. We want what is best for our veterans. The status quo is not good for our veterans, and I have no problem with this and urge my colleagues to vote in favor of the friendly amendment.
Thank you. Are there any other members who wish to speak on the underlying amendment? Hearing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the Brownlee Amendment to H.R. 1336. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the Brownlee Amendment is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. No other amendments were filed. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Hearing none, further proceedings on the bill will be postponed. We now move on to H.R. 658. I now recognize the clerk will read the bill number and official titles.
H.R. 658, to amend
The
Title...
text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is now open for an amendment at any point. I now recognize Ranking Member Brownlee for 3 minutes to discuss H.R. 658.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that we are considering my bill to address an inequity in VA promotional opportunities for licensed marriage and family therapists. Licensed marriage and family therapists assist individuals and couples in coping with interpersonal conflicts, major life changes, and a variety of other challenges. Currently, VA hires licensed marriage family therapists who are licensed through a variety of organizations, including through the Commission of Accreditation for Marriage and Family Therapy Education Program and through the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. However, VA's current qualification standards hamstring nearly half of the licensed marriage and family therapists currently practicing, since only those licensed through the Commission on Accreditation for Marriage and Family Therapy Education may be promoted to supervisory positions at VA. VA's current limitation discourages qualified licensed marriage and family therapists from wanting to serve at the VA. Unlike VA, TRICARE, private insurance plans, Medi-Cal, and K-12 schools do not require their licensed marriage and family therapists to graduate from a Commission on Accreditation for Marriage and Family Therapy Education Program to be promoted, resulting in them leaving VA for better opportunities elsewhere. My bill will address this inequity by allowing qualified licensed marriage and family therapists more opportunities to assist our nation's veterans and their families. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this bill, and with that, I will yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Brownlee, for your statement. Although I have policy concerns with this bill, I support moving this bill out of our subcommittee for further consideration. Do any other members wish to be recognized on H.R. 658? Do any members have an amendment? No amendments were filed. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Hearing none, I now recognize Ranking Member Brownlee for a motion.
That H.R. 658 be reported favorably to the full committee.
There is a motion to favorably forward H.R. 658. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 658 is favorably forwarded to the full committee. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. We will take a brief recess to allow members to get here and allow the clerk to prepare the electronic voting system. The committee will now move to consider the postponed proceedings. I ask unanimous consent that the committee staff be authorized to make technical, clerical, and conforming changes to the bills favorably forwarded today. The committee postponed the vote on agreeing to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1969. Members will record their vote using the electronic voting system. The chairwoman intends to vote aye. I'll yield to the ranking member to discuss how she will vote.
Well, I can't see if I'm up on the board.
I can't either.
What? You can't either? Can somebody see if I'm a no up there?
I think red is no and green is yes. But I had cataract surgery and still cannot see, but yeah, can we put this on an 84-inch screen? No, I won't. I apologize. It's not on here. I already pushed. I did. I recorded yes. I did.
There you go. You got it.
I was there before. Okay, have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Hearing none, the clerk will now close the vote and announce the total. The clerk will announce the total.
Ms. Chairwoman, the vote is 7 ayes and 5 noes.
There are 7 ayes and 5 noes. H.R. 1969 as amendment is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. I now recognize Representative Van Orden for a motion.
Madam Chairwoman, I move that the subcommittee favorably forward H.R. 1336 to the full committee.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. This is 1969.
Yeah, but he's
Did you say the wrong bill?
yeah.
Madam Chairwoman, I move that the subcommittee favorably forward H.R. 1996 to the full committee.
Given that the electronic voting system is taking some getting used to. 1969.
I stand corrected. 1969.
All those in
I
favor
was born.
of H.R. 1969 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. H.R. 1969 as amendment is reported favorably to the House. The committee postponed further proceedings on the Morrison Amendment to H.R. 1336. The question occurs on agreeing to the amendment on H.R. 1336. Members will record their vote using the electronic voting system. The chairman intends to vote no. Does the ranking member wish to discuss her vote? Okay, have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Hearing none, the clerk will close the vote and announce the total.
Madam Chairwoman, the vote is 5 ayes and 7 noes.
The noes have it. The amendment to H.R. 1336 is not agreed to. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now recognize Representative Van Orden for a motion.
Madam Chairwoman, I move that the subcommittee favorably forward H.R. 1336 to the full committee.
There is a motion to favorably forward H.R. 1336 as... We have another amendment. We did one by voice. It's the third amendment. Did you call for recorded? No. Okay, all right.
Okay, Madam Chairwoman, apparently I move that the subcommittee favorably forward H.R. 1336 as amended to the full committee.
All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 1336 is favorably forwarded to the full committee. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The question occurs on agreeing to favorably forward to the full committee H.R. We did. We only two amendment. We did the amendment.
Wasn't there a roll call vote?
Aye.
We didn't vote.
I ask unanimous consent that the committee staff be authorized to make technical, clerical, and conforming changes to the bill favorably for today.
We did not vote on the bill as amended, which we requested a recorded vote.
We accepted the amendments.
We accepted the amendment.
Accepted 2 of the 3. We voted down the Morrison amendment. Then, because it's not an ANS, you just vote on the bill. So we voted on.
We voted on 2 amendments, voted down 1 amendment,
favorably
and then voted on the bill as amended.
Yeah.
If you want me to, we can redo it.
You don't need to vote on the underlying bill if it's not an ANS. Yeah. Just the motions. So we just split them up.
Okay, I ask that unanimous consent that the committee staff be authorized to make technical, clerical, and conforming changes to the bills favorably forwarded today. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I thank the members for their attendance today, and the subcommittee markup is adjourned. But it wasn't until this morning that which amendments were agreed to by Markup, which is not agreed to. So that has to be misrepresented.
Are you leaving us?
So. And then have our council clarify whether or not, I think the bill should be submitted as amended.
That's what they put on my sheet to read. Not 1996, it was 1336,
It's okay. There was 2 of them, 1960. You were doing both.